So, page 20. Let's finish up the last line of the Shulchan Aruch on top, the tet. Sorry. Let's not do Yutet, let's go to the tet on top. Yesh nohagin. There are those who have the custom Lomar, to say Parashat Kio, the parsha, the chapter about the Kio, the sink of the temple. Not really a sink as much as I translated from Hebrew, the wash basin.
The laver.
Laver, yeah. What is a Kio? In modern Hebrew, you call your sink a Kio, because that's where you wash things.
It's like a sink where water is bouncing. Wash the feet.
I've seen a picture of the Kio. Not a picture, I've seen the real Kio. That's going to be ready for the Beit HaMikdash when it comes in Yerushalayim. They have a Kio made out of nechoshet, made out of whatever it needs to be made out of. Nechoshet is copper. Thank you. So the Kio HaNechoshet, the Kio is the wash basin. The wash basin, we have the custom that before the Kohanim do Birkat Kohanim, who goes to wash their hands? The Leviim, right? The Leviim. This custom originated in Spain, and this custom goes back to the times of the Beit HaMikdash, where the Kohanim, before they would pray, would have the Leviim wash their hands and feet. And we don't wash their feet because that's already like a take off your shoes, your socks. What?
Moshe did not wash Aaron's hand.
Moshe did not wash Aaron's hand, okay. But we wash, Leviim wash the Kohanim's hand.
You'll explain why we don't do the feet anymore. It's interesting, the Muslims still wash hands and feet before praying.
Right, because we don't walk barefoot anymore. Those who would walk barefoot and their feet would be dirty and they'd come to the Kehillat with mud all over their feet, they actually do, you're right, would have to wash their feet. But we don't. We're not like that anymore. They still... So, some read the Parashat Kiyol. The Kiyol actually look like, if you can imagine, it looks something like this. Let's pretend it's a big container, and it has faucets at the bottom. Actually, probably much at the bottom, so that all the water can come out. Kind of like your hot water urn for Shabbat, but doesn't have hot water in it. And you really open it up and wash their hands, and they would close the tap. And this water, somebody in Mikdash would fill it up. Some came from the Me'er Shilach, from the waters that came that King Shlomo managed to put together. In any case, this is the concept of the Kior. Many people have the custom, some people have the custom to read this parasha as well. V'achar kach parashat Tumat HaDeshen, and also the parasha of the Tumat HaDeshen, of the donating of the grains. V'achar kach parashat Tamid, and then the parashat Tamid, which is the offering that what did you call it yesterday?
Continuous.
The daily, continuous offering. It's the one they brought all the time.
Tamid, come on.
Tamidi, it's something consistent, continuous. V'achar kach parashat Mizbach Miktar Ketoret, and then they read the parsha of the altar of the incense offering. Uparshat Simanei HaKtoret V'asiyato, and the parsha of the signs of the Ketoret and its doing. The ingredients, Simanei, signs.
Yeah.
The ingredients of the Ketoret and the way you actually brought the Ketoret. You do this, you do that, you mix this, you mix that. The preparations. There are some who added all of these extra parashiyot, and I guess what that would do would provide for you a more wholesome experience of as if you were in the Beit HaMikdash. Imagine, how many of you know what they did every day in the Beit HaMikdash? You do? Well, my father. But parts of it. If we were really to say the korbanot and the ketoret and the mizbech and the kior, and we read all of these things every single day, you and I would be much less foreign to the concepts that exist in the Beit HaMikdash than we are today. We don't know because we don't read them. If we would read them every day, we would study them every day, we would learn them every day, so we would know a lot of things that we didn't know before. The Chavetz Chaim, Rabbi Israel Meir Cohen Kagan, he had a special kollel.
I was just thinking about him out there, like he was like going up and down. He would go down the stairs trying to get ready for the.
The Chavetz Chaim was known to be very Mashiach aware, very ready for the redemption to come. The Chavetz Chaim had a special bag that he always kept packed next to his bed. And when they asked him what this bag was for, some people we just had a baby nephew in the family. They keep a suitcase packed and ready to go, right? In case they have to go to the hospital. So the Chavetz Chaim kept the suitcase always packed, ready to go to Eretz Yisrael. If Mashiach would come, he'd be able to pack his stuff. He didn't have to wait. He would just be able to get on the plane and come back to Eretz Yisrael.
Did they have planes?
No, on the boat, on the horse, or whatever you need to go.
Magic carpet.
Magic eagles.
Eagles, wings of
The
eagles.
wings of an eagle.
Eagle plane. Nowadays.
The Chavetz Chaim had a Kollel. And in this Kollel, the Kollel is a place where adult men learn. And supposedly,
Over 13 Jews
and in the Kollel, the Chavetz Chaim only allowed Kohanim to be part of this Kollel.
That must have
Only
Like
Kohanim.
learning, the halacha of
And they were
Beit HaMikdash.
studying in detail the laws of the Beit HaMikdash. How to build it, how to use it, how to offer sacrifices in it, the laws of purity and impurity, Kohanim, their clothing, so on and so forth.
There's a call like that in Israel.
In Israel now. You can imagine that this was from the Chavetz Chaim. Like, this is already a whole caliber. He himself was a Kohen. The Chavetz Chaim very much believed, unlike today the Christian Jewish belief, which is that the temple is going to fall out of heaven. Rather, the Chavetz Chaim believed, listen, we are going to actively have to teach ourselves how to operate in the Beit HaMikdash. What do you think is going to happen? You think overnight they're going to be able to teach us everything we need to know? How is that possible? We don't have such a concept in our reality that overnight you know something you didn't know yesterday. Rather, if you want to be a proper Kohen, your obligation is to study the laws of the Kohanim. The laws of the Kohanim. I have a book in my house. It's all the laws of the Levim. Things Levim need to know. I won't lie to you that I've been through the entire book, but there are things that people need to know. When the Beit HaMikdash comes, do you want to know that there are Kohanim who know what they're doing? We don't want to come to the Beit HaMikdash and say, oh, where's our instruction manual? Turn to page 35. And you look around, oh, I don't know what to do. The Kohen Gadol, he doesn't know what to do either.
Look at the index page.
The index page, there you go. By then you could just Google it, there'll be an app for it, something like that.
Look at your running commentary, the Ashkenaz style.
There. And also what happened, so, at the end of the day, the Chavetz Chaim felt that we have to teach people. And he taught people how to do it.
Was that later in this one?
That was, I don't know when, probably, yes, towards the middle of his life. I don't know the end of his life.
Some middle, very thick biography of him. I haven't gotten to that.
Ah, okay. One of the Chavetz Chaim students in this kollel was none other than, someone give me a name. Who else was a Kohen and was famous?
The Rav Kook.
Rav Kook. Rabbi Avram Yitzchak, a Kohen Kook, was very close to the Chavetz Chaim. Most people don't know that. You see, in the Jewish world, they try to separate the Rav Kook from as many rabbis as they possibly can. And unfortunately, what they don't realize is that Rav Kook didn't exist in a vacuum. Rav Kook was considered one of the giants of his generation almost unanimously. Even by those who opposed him. They only opposed him because they viewed him as someone important, not because they viewed him as a nobody. What? That was his name. Rav Kook, for example, was very good friends with Rav Isser Zalman Meltzer of Yerushalayim. You might recognize some of these names. He was very good friends with the sixth Lubavitch Rebbe. He was very good friends with the Ger Rebbe. Rav Kook was a student of the Netziv, Rav Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin. Rav Kook was also a student of the Chavetz Chaim. Rav Kook was the chief rabbi of Israel. He happened to be classmates with Chaim Nachman Bialik and that whole chevra when they were still in Velazhin, and those were the days. Rav Kook studied in this kollel of the Chavetz Chaim, and the only reason he left was because the Chavetz Chaim told him, "You have a bigger job to do than sit here. You have to go to Israel, and you have to become the chief rabbi of Israel. Establish a rabbinate and be the chief rabbi. Put some organization to Israel. We're coming home soon."
Wow.
And Rav Kook traveled to Israel and became the first chief rabbi of Israel. Here's what happened. Rav Kook was Rav Kook. Rav Kook shows up in Israel, and he is his own personality. And he sees what's happening in there. This is the early 1900s. He sees Jews coming from all walks of life. He saw many secular Jews, which didn't really exist in his communities in Europe. He saw people who claimed to be atheists, but were spending all their money and possessions and giving up their lives to establish cities and towns in the land of Israel. He said, you guys are not as secular as you think you are. You are actually very in tune to a greater divine mission, which is to prepare this country for the Jewish people to come back home. And therefore, instead of fighting them like many of the rabbis in Israel were doing, Rav Kook lent a hand to them. And he said, I want to help you. I want to be a part of it. And unfortunately, whenever you are the voice of reason or sanity in the Jewish community, the first thing that will happen is you'll be attacked by the people who are not voices of reason, nor are they sane. And a very minute portion of the Jewish community attacks Rav Kook. A minute portion. I can tell you, maybe 3 rabbis. Maybe. From the Ashkenazi, Lithuanian, and Hasidic circles, both of them, not just predominantly. You had the Sephardic chief rabbi of Israel, who joined with Rav Kook and founded the first chief rabbinate of Israel. And therefore the Sephardim as a whole pretty much were okay with Rav Kook, aside from a big chacham, Rav Yedid. Well, that was his problem, not anybody else's. In the first Agudat Yisrael convention of, where was it, anybody know? Vienna. Yeah.
Let me see.
Agudat Yisrael, you know what Agudat Yisrael is?
They fill Yankee Stadium.
They fill the Yankees. What are they?
They do a big siyum.
What's their...
Well, the very establishment Orthodox.
They're like establishment Orthodox. The Agudat Yisrael is as follows.
No smiling faces. It's true. You ever see them smiling?
What you had in Europe was the problem that
Now, settle down.
the Jewish community was splitting up into pieces. You had the Hasidic communities, and of the Hasidic community, they don't listen to Hasidim when they tell you that they had opponents and that there were Hasidim. The Hasidim in their own right were the greatest opponents to other forms of Hasidut. If you want to find out, walk into any Hasidic synagogue you know and mention the name of a different Hasidut and see the reaction that you're going to get. They're just as misnagdish, as opposed to other Hasiduyot as the people around them are. There's nothing special about...
Agree about Chabad.
What? So, the Lithuanians are not any different. They weren't all Lithuanian in Europe. You had the Polish Jews, and you had the Hungarian Jews, and you had the Russian Jews. And where was it?
Katowice.
In where?
Katowice, Poland.
In Poland?
Katowice.
Counterwinds.
After the 10th World Zionist.
Look on it. What's Katowice?
Let's see.
Tell me where it is.
It is in...
So, the communities were falling apart. And the worst thing was they were standing up to some pretty serious opposition from who? Who was the biggest challenge to the Orthodox establishment in Europe?
The communists.
Close. You guys are
The Jews who joined those things.
Jewish
in the Jewish
communists.
community.
That means like the
Secular Jewish
The Enlightenment, the early Reform movement. Yeah?
That means like it's the
They
state,
were the
the
biggest
state, right?
threat, so to speak, to the religious Orthodox community in Israel. Poland. And therefore what some rabbis decided to do was to form what's called the Agudat Yisrael, which meant the unified Israel, or the band or the alliance of Orthodox rabbis. That was what they did. And they put together the Agudah. And they said, listen, we know some of us are Hasidic. We know some of us are Lithuanian. We know some of us don't agree on many things. But one thing we do agree upon is that Europe's Judaism needs to be re-standardized, needs to agree on something, needs to have a tool with which to fight opposition, needs to have one voice piece. And the way to do it, we're going to establish a rabbinic congress. And that was the first Agudat Yisrael convention. Nobody thought it would work. Nobody thought, which Hasidic Rebbe and a Lithuanian rabbi going to sit together at the same table? Didn't ever happen before.
What'd they eat?
So what happened? In the Agudat Yisrael convention, they established the first one in Poland. Hundreds of rabbis came. Hundreds of rabbis. You know, the head of Agudat Yisrael today, even though it's predominantly a Lithuanian organization, the head of Agudat Yisrael today is the Novominsker Rebbe. He's a Hasidic Rebbe. Rav Perlau. Actually not a Lithuanian rabbi. And that is who runs the Agudat Yisrael. Now, I'm not going to speak about them today. I want to speak about them in their historic fashion. It makes my life easier. The first time that rabbis sat together to discuss any Jewish issues, this is a brilliant concept. Some rabbis opted out. Lubavitch, for example, never joined the Agudat Yisrael. My wife's Chassidut Stolen refused to join the Agudat Yisrael. The Satmar Rebbe was part of Agudat Yisrael until the Agudah came to Israel and accepted Zionist money. Once they accepted Zionist money, the Satmar Rebbe pulled out along with a number of his Rebbes that backed that of Agudat Yisrael as well, and pretty much the rise of Zionism as a state was the fall of the Agudat Yisrael as a cohesive Ashkenazi rabbinic body. The first convention, they decided to discuss issues. It was like a week-long convention. They were going to discuss issues that were pressing to the Jewish communities, and they had delegations that came from different countries to present their issues or their problems to the Rabbinic Congress. The Agudas Yisrael delegation from Israel, they came with one mission in mind, and they claimed that their biggest problem in Israel was not the Arabs, it was not the British, it was Rav Kook. Rav Kook.
He united Jews, Agudat Israel.
Rav Kook. And the Agudas Yisrael members stood up and they spoke some pretty terrible things about Rav Kook. I have a letter from one of the Rebbes where he calls Rav Kook, he doesn't call him Rabbi, he calls him Avram Yitzchak, and he says, Ish Tsar V'oyev, which that word is used by who? Who will we say that about?
Haman.
Haman in the Megillah.
That's some serious stuff.
He said he's a terror to the Jewish people. He called him Ma'amid Tselem B'Heichal. He puts idols in the Holy Temple. Who did that? Who did that? The Greeks in Hanukkah. He pretty much goes to Jewish history and gives Rav Kook many honorary titles based on Jewish history. He writes Kol Svarav Mileim B'divrei Kfira Uminut. He says all of his books are filled with words of heresy and backwards religious beliefs, and so on and so forth. And this was the style of speech of the delegation of the Agudat Yisrael from Israel. Now, who's sitting in this delegation? It's Poland. Who lived in Poland? The Chavetz Chaim lived in which town? Yeah, Radin. Very nice. I'll go see. Learn something. It's cool. In Radin. He's sitting in Radin. He comes to the delegation, and he hears these people from Israel speaking about his student. And not just any student, but the one that he sent to Israel to be the rabbi of Israel. Not somebody that just came out of his own to become the rabbi of Israel. And the Chavetz Chaim stood up, screamed something, and left the convention. I'll tell you what he screamed in a moment. But I'll tell you why. When I was in yeshiva, I heard the story, because everyone teaches you the history of the Agudas Yisrael, of their as establishment gets, the school I went to. But they said, as the history books say, they didn't make it up. In the history book, you open it up, in most Orthodox mainstream history books, it says, Chavetz Chaim wasn't feeling well, and he left the event. They didn't say that he was sick to his stomach because of what they were doing in the event. That's not what they said. The Chavetz Chaim stood up and said that no one can speak about the chief rabbi of Israel like this. And then he said, V'sofan shel elu, the end of these people will be lehishtamed, that they will end up leaving Judaism and be obliterated entirely. That's what he cursed them with, and he left. And before the end of the convention, they came to wish him. It was the chief rabbi, it was the Gadol Ador, the Chavetz Chaim. They went to get a bracha from him. The rabbis, the delegation from Israel. And Chavetz Chaim wouldn't look at them. They're not willing to talk to you. He said, I can't say shalom. I can't say hello to people who speak like that about Rav Kook. They don't tell you this in school. They don't tell you this in Orthodox synagogues around the world. Rav Kook was a very mainstream Orthodox rabbi. And Rav Kook actually didn't do much that we don't do today anyways. But he came to the realization much quicker than most rabbis did. A pioneer. He's not my rabbi. I don't do everything like Rav Kook. There are things that I don't do like Rav Kook. I'm not a student of his. But to put things into perspective. The Chavetz Chaim, I don't know how we got there, spoke about, he felt the Jews are so disconnected with the world of Korbanot, with the world of the Beit HaMikdash, with the world of what does it mean to be pure? What does it mean that I shouldn't go to certain places? You know what drives rabbis crazy? Is when people go to cemeteries to pray. Did you hear what I just said? When people go to cemeteries to pray. Let's pretend that Judaism allows you to visit a cemetery. Let's just pretend. I'm not going to tell you that it's true. Let's pretend that Judaism says you can come to cemeteries whenever you want.
Not whatever you want.
If a person went to a cemetery in the times of the Beit HaMikdash, would they be allowed to go pray Mincha in the Beit HaMikdash that day?
No way. Not.
What would they have to do?
7 days.
They have two matmeit. They have to count, like a lady who's a nida. They have to count. They have to go to the mikvah. They have to bring a sacrifice, and only after that sacrifice are they now permitted, like everybody else, into the Beit HaMikdash. So the Vilna Gaon says, I don't understand. You guys are just going to cemeteries to pray? He says, for what good reason are you making yourself impure? He said, you want to pray? So go somewhere pure. Go to the Beit Knesset. Walk into a place where it's so holy that you're not even allowed to sleep in there. Walk to a place that's so holy you can't even eat in there. But don't go to a place where you'd have to go to the mikveh afterwards. A person needs to go to the cemetery in order to bury Kehillat. There's a funeral. Fine. But it's become a little bit of our culture. We're so disconnected. If Mashiach would come today, half of the Jews who spend their whole life going on trips in Israel to different graves, they wouldn't even be allowed to enter the Beit HaMikdash. They wouldn't be allowed to enter the Beit HaMikdash.
If you go to the Rambam's kever, you can't. You have to go to the mikveh where there was a Beit HaMikdash.
The Rambam didn't want people at his
Oh,
kever.
that's right, you mentioned that.
The Rambam held that going to grave sites of even tzaddikim, he held it was a non-Jewish custom. And he says that one violates a biblical prohibition when they come to people's graves. Now, Rav Goren, the first chief rabbi of the army in Israel, Rav Goren wrote a whole book on this topic and says that we misunderstand the Rambam. Okay, I'll give it to him. I'm not saying he's wrong. But some say that tzaddikim's graves don't make you impure. Okay, I'm willing to say that if you need chizuk, you need strength, go wherever you need to go to do what it takes. But that it's become so normal in our religion to become impure, it's a crazy thing.
In Rabbi, people go there, write a letter, they make a request, put it over there, piles of the request. And then people come out, and my son says, kid says, cookies, and coffee, come home. But there's a yeshiva right there.
It's what?
School right there. Students learning.
Well, so many Moroccans go.
Right there, right there. There's two mikvahs. You can go on mikvah, the other
One on your way in, one on your way out.
Yeah, the Rashbas too. I mean, you have like it's a whole party scene.
Clearly,
It's
it's become part of traditional Judaism to go to tzaddikim's graves. I'm not saying that a person shouldn't go. Just that a person has to think twice. If we had a Beit HaMikdash, I wouldn't be allowed to go there. I wouldn't be allowed to go there. But we're so out of touch with the Beit HaMikdash. And this
The
is,
Beit HaMikdash
the Shulchan Aruch is finishing out. The last two sections we're going to do here is about, we're done now with talking about the Ktoriyat. We're done about all these things. But a person has to start thinking about how far removed do I live from the world of the Beit HaMikdash? Pretty far. Pretty far removed. Just from the fact that even traditional Judaism includes things that we weren't allowed to do in traditional Judaism.
Well, we're thousands of years away.
We are thousands of years away. But if we really believe that it's right around the corner, I'm speaking to myself too. I'm not speaking to anyone here. We should be a little bit more ready.
Good idea.
You know, in Israel, we technically could build the temple if we wanted. We could. We'd have to deal with like a World War III. We could. So we can't build a temple. You know, you're allowed to bring a Korban Pesach still today.
I saw videos.
You don't need a temple to bring a Korban Pesach. Moses Montefiore wanted to bring a Korban Pesach. I think I told you this already. In one of our classes. They don't make it up there before they get arrested. I had a chavrut. I used to every year try to bring that animal up to the Temple Mount.
Oh, on the side of Temple Mount.
On the side.
Yeah, they do.
Is that like the same thing?
But the Jewish people aren't ready for it because they don't want it. Because somehow we all, Mashiach comes, Mashiach should come. We'd like to speak a lot about Mashiach. We'd like to speak, we don't do anything for it. We don't do anything to proactive, to not just bring the Mashiach. I'm not here to, one more mitzvah, I'll tip the scales. That's not my world philosophy. And our goal as Jews isn't even to bring Mashiach. But it's to be aware of the fact that it will come. And if it will come at any moment, I have to be ready for it. And if I'm not ready for it, then I need to figure myself out.
So the custom to put the letters in the graves, is it?
There's only one grave where they have that custom. Everything they did at the Lubavitch Rebbe's grave, they didn't make up. The Lubavitch Rebbe did everything at his father-in-law's grave. Yeah? Everything he did, whether it was taking off his shoes, or knocking on the door, or putting in letters, ripping them up, reading the whole thing, he did to his father-in-law. So when the Rebbe passed away, they did it also to the Rebbe. Okay, I'm not here.
Just able to letter, so you're able to communicate with father-in-law.
Okay, so I'm not on that level. I go to places and everyone's for me is dead. But okay, you don't find even in Meron we don't put letters in Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's grave or in the Shulchan Aruch's grave.
They tear the letter and put it.
Right, I know. I
People
know.
are definitely eating there, and they're partying there, and they're singing there, and they're praying there, and they're
Right.
studying there. At Kever Rachel, they actually brag that they'll never they'll never stop studying right next to.
Yeah, I was like 24.
Like, we guarantee 24 hours, and you can actually pay money to have like a whole team of people that will study, will pray.
By Jews, you can pay money for everything. If you pay us money, we'll get a whole team of people to study here too. Trust me, everyone will do that. So let's
2 days of
yeah.
Are we
Shavuot.
allowed to eat on somebody's grave?
2 days of
That's a
Shavuot.
bit of a problem.
Not that.
Cookies.
They don't eat, even Chabad, they don't eat in the grave. They eat outside of the cemetery.
Outside, the Tana, they
No, but
prove that.
around Shimon Bar Yochai's grave.
Like I said, many are of the opinion that tzaddikim's graves don't make you impure. And because of that, around the tzaddikim's graves, people have allowed you to do things that you're not allowed to do by other graves.
How is
Okay.
that
I know there are great rabbis who agree with this derech and this approach. Okay, I'm not against it. Just that we should be aware.
But it's all
If the
the
Beit
same
HaMikdash were to come today, we'd have to find a whole new group of people to go up there. People who know and people who are pure. So, we should work on both. But at least the korbanot.
Make them pure.
You can say, why do I have to say korbanot? Look, it says you can skip them, you can cut them out. I agree, you're allowed to skip them. But the more we skip them, the more we remove the daily avodah of the temple from our minds. We don't know much about what went on in the temple.
But there was a korban.
Let's keep reading.
At least once a week.
It's a good idea. Yeah.
Shabbat.
Mi shenitacher, someone who came late. Yud Tet inside of the halacha brura. 19. Mi shenitacher, someone who came late, lavo levet hakneset, to come to the temple. V'im yomar, and if he'll say, kol seder hakorbanot, the entire order of the korbanot, lo yaspik, he will not be able lihitpalel, to pray tfilat Shmona Esrei, the Shmona Esrei prayer, im hatzibur, with the minyan. If a person comes late to Beit Knesset, says, listen, I know that they're going to pray Shmona Esrei in 10 minutes. I can either start now Baruch She'amar, or I can go back and connect to the korbanot and sacrifices and all these things. What should I do? There are many circles where they believe that you come to synagogue, as long as there are 10 people praying in the room, you can keep praying. You do whatever you do at your pace. I saw... Okay, later I'll say. Sometimes I see people, they come to Beit Knesset, and they sit there. The guys, now they're saying Shema. So what are you doing now reading Tehillim? What? Tehillim has nothing to do with now. Read it afterwards. There's something called Tfilah B'tzibur, praying with the community. Praying with the community means? Praying with the community, very nice, right?
Literally.
Praying with the community. So if there are things I can't skip, okay, I told you already before what the things you can't skip. But those are very few. So a person comes to Beit Knesset, I have a choice. Can I say korbanot? Or do I start from Baruch She'amar? What do? Yidaleg, you should skip. Yidaleg, you should skip. Kol seder korbanot, all of the korbanot. V'yatchil Baruch She'amar, and you should begin from Baruch She'amar.
Even if he will not be able to finish one of this.
Now in parentheses, he adds, V'im af b'chayoseh b'zeh, but if he does this anyways, lo yaspik, he won't reach lihitpalel Shmona Esrei, to pray Shmona Esrei im hatzibur, with the community. What happens if a person knows, even if I skip the korbanot, I'm still not going to make it to Shmona Esrei? They pray with Moshe Chaim in his synagogue. Yeah?
Everybody skips.
What?
Sacrifice portion.
Everybody.
Everybody skips.
You know, I'll tell you a story about this. There was once a little girl who was sitting in a field, and Rabbi Hoshua walks by her. I think it was Rabbi Hoshua. And he starts to walk through the field. So the little girl says, who let you walk through the field? Is it your field? And so she says, so he tells the little girl, he says, no, it's not my field, but look, there's a trail. Everybody walks through here.
That doesn't mean
And he says, yeah, because thieves like you have walked through this person's field. That's why there's a trail through the field. And he says that he learned something from this girl. Just because everybody does something, and they've done it so much that now everyone's doing it and it's okay, and they've even paved the road down the middle of someone else's field, it doesn't mean that it's okay. It doesn't mean that it's okay. When do you run through this all the time? When it comes to halachot. I have a section in my book, by the way. This is the beginning edition of what it might look like. Not exactly, but close. And in here, we're going to discuss minhagim, a custom. People think, everyone here knows, custom pushes off halakha, right? That's what they told everybody.
No.
It's the biggest joke that someone ever made up. How could a custom push off a halakha? You know that majority of Americans have a custom not to keep Shabbat? So now we're not going to keep Shabbat anymore. How could it be that because somebody stopped to do something, and that became their custom, that now nobody has to do it anymore? If the Shulchan Aruch says you cannot do X, but you see, listen, there were generations, people weren't able to do it, so on and so forth. So now I'm going to say my custom is that I don't do it? My custom is I don't keep kosher. I have a cousin in Israel. I was at his house, and the light in my room was on. He said, okay, don't worry, I'll come turn it off for you. I said, you can't turn it off. It's like, no, you're religious. You can't turn it off, but I can turn it off.
Actually, Jews use that excuse quite a bit. Like,
For what?
well, on Reform, we don't do that.
Right. No,
Yeah.
so we do this as
It's
Orthodox
a
Jews
wheat mark.
also.
Yeah.
We don't just do it as we like to speak of the Reform. Orthodox Jews do it all the time. There are entire halachot. People don't do them. How can you not do them? Oh, we don't do it because we're X, Y, and Z. It's not a minhag because your family didn't do it. There's no such thing as a minhag. No such thing as a minhag. What is a custom? A custom is, you ever said at the Pesach Seder? Yemenites, Moroccans, they like wrap matzah up in their talit and they throw it over the shoulder. They pretend they're leaving the Seder to go to Israel. You know this custom?
Yeah.
That's a minhag. And if someone says, in my family, I don't want to do it anymore. So you're foolish because clearly this is a special custom. It came from somewhere. But what if we knew that on Pesach, it's not true. What if there was such a halakha that you were not allowed to put matzot inside of talitot and tie them up? So am I still going to do it? No. In Morocco, for example, they had a custom on Shavuot to spray people with water on Shavuot. But you're not allowed to spray people with water on a holiday because it waters the ground. So am I allowed to do it? So in Israel, they'd be like, yes, of course, it was our custom. We did this. Who cares if it was your custom? What does it help you? You're not allowed to spray water on Yom Tov and Shabbat. We have rules to the game. So how is it that by everything people, they play it's like a wild card? It's my custom. It's our minhag. It's not our minhag. It's this minhag. It's your minhag. Since when did we create a new Judaism? So you told me. If nobody says, no. Oh, so how does a person say, we don't do it? So you're right. So nobody says korbanot anymore. But it's a mistake that nobody says korbanot anymore. We don't have time for it. You're right. Even in my Bet Knesset, we don't always say. Because it's a hard thing to do, but it's a problem that we have to be aware of. I don't want the next generation of people to grow up and think, oh, they're going to take it out of the Siddur already. Like the Siddurim, they don't have Tikkun Chatzot in them anymore. Just because we don't say them doesn't mean you should take it out of the Siddur. Just leave it in there in case one day somebody has the chance to say it. So it's very dangerous, right? Everyone does something, and even big rabbis. Big rabbis believed that Bar Kochba was Mashiach. Mm-hmm. Big rabbis believed that Shabtai Tzvi was the Mashiach. Yeah? Not everything that all the big rabbis do is right.
Every generation they think the rabbi is Messiah.
Not in this generation, thank God. Baruch Hashem. So, this is we don't have to make mistakes just because everyone else is making a mistake. Yesh omrim. No, sorry, we still have one more section. V'chol zeh,
Chinese, I'll read that.
v'achar tefillah, after the prayer service, you see after the parentheses, v'achar tefillah, after the prayer service, yomar kol seder korbanot, he should say all of the korbanot.
Sacrifice.
So after
When you're done,
The kol zeh, all of this, is keshanit acher, when he was late, lavoda bet knesset, if he came late to prayer. Aval im rotze stam leshonot haseder, but if he stam just decides he wants to change around the order, I don't have patience to say korbanot now. I want to say them afterwards.
You have time afterwards?
Maybe, yeah. Velomar korbanot achar tefillah. He wants to say the korbanot after prayer services. Ledat Rabotenu, according to the opinion of our rabbis, Hamekubalim, the Kabbalists, En ze nachon la'asot. You should not do that. Why?
It's out of the order.
It's out of order. What happens out of order? Shaharehu, because he mehafech is turning upside down seder ha'olamot, the order of the worlds. See, according to Kabbalah, everything we say in the Siddur comes at a certain point for a certain reason at a certain time. It's a certain length. It's a certain. Everything happens for a reason.
Don't say Shachrit.
They have Siddurim that have Atzilut, Bria.
So we have the most Sepharadic Siddurim also. Your Pesukei de Zimra is in this world. Your Berkot Kriyat Shema is in that world. Your Shulchan Esrei, Olam Atzilut. Tachanun brings you down a world. This brings you down a world. And at the end, you finish exactly at whatever world you're supposed to be in. It's a good roller coaster. But what happens if now you take the middle world and you put it at the end? Or you take the first world and you put it last? Say the Mekubalim, this is crazy. This is crazy. It's like, you're trying to put an electric socket. You want this light switch to go to these lights. So what are you doing? Instead, you're going to put half of the light bulbs over there, and you're going to put a wire over here, and the light switch is going to be in the roof. And you want that when you touch the light bulb, it should turn on the light. So Mekubalim says you're turning around the whole order of the tefillah. There's a reason why the siddur is a certain way. So if you skip it, skip it. But don't put it at the end. Don't change around the order of things. Sometimes you're missing, the light won't turn on today. Or it'll be a little bit dim. But don't turn it upside down.
Yeah.
Now there is, I didn't mention this the other day when we were going through the Siddur, but it is in our note, in the note Tet Vav in the Berurah Halakha. We're not going to read it together. But Maran does write in the Shulchan Aruch that somebody who's unable to say Pesukei de Zimra should start with everybody at Baruch Hu. Should start, when they say Baruch Hu, start with them at Baruch Hu. I personally struggle with it because the Mekubalim said you're not allowed to do that. The Maran and the Shulchan Aruch says you're supposed to do it.
Yemenites do it.
Yemenites do it.
Yeah.
The Shulchan Aruch says to do it. The Kabbalists were very against it. How could you skipping Korbanot is one thing. Skipping Pesukei de Zimra is a whole other ballpark. But at the end of the day, Rabbi Yosef says that between the Kabbalists and the Halachists, we always follow Halacha. Kabbalists can follow Kabbalah, but we're not all Kabbalists. So a person should try to make themselves in a situation where they always have time to at least say Baruch She'amar, Ashrei Yishtabach. Try not to come later than that. That way you don't get into this question of, do I follow the Shulchan Aruch and say Baruch Hu, or do I follow the Kabbalists and start with Baruch She'amar?
Sometimes it happens because you come late to shul and there's another minyan starting. And so you did not plan, you plan to find whatever, but they need you for a minyan.
Right.
And they wait, they say all the Pesukei de Zimra waiting for the 10-1 to show up. And you are the 10-1, and now you're not going to say Baruch She'amar because
right.
you're going to hold the community together. And so that's what I found myself most of the time, that I have to start Baruch Hu.
I was in Yeshiva in Israel where they would wait. They would wait for the guy to finish praying till he reached where they're at, and then they would say Shemona Esrei, for example. I don't know, that's what you have to do, like you're saying.
No, Kehillat Tzibur is very
Kehillat Tzibur is very important. Okay.
Even when Rabbi prays, they don't wait.
They don't wait.
Really?
What do you mean?
Amida is saying it, Rabbi is still saying it.
So I just want to just get clear, because you went over the order of the prayers you're supposed to make up if you come in late and everything. But is it so important to start the Shemona Esrei with the congregation if you're like starting Shema? You skip Shema and...
No. So you can never skip Shema. Once you hit, like I said, Yotzei Or, that section of Baruch Hu, you never skip that. Never.
So you should. You're not in sync with saying the Shemona Esrei with
the community.
Yeah.
That time which comes to show earlier.
You only say you skip the Korbanot, you skip Pesukei de Zimra.
Yeah.
To deal with Baruch Hu, with the community.
It used to be that people prayed at a very steady pace, like a slow but steady pace. And therefore, if you came late, you would still have time, if you would read fast, to make it to where they're at. Today, they pray at the fastest pace they can pray, and that if you come, most of these questions don't even come up because there's no way humanly possible you can say what you need to say to get. For example, though, if you have ever walked into a Yemenite shul, if you ever walked, Yemenites say the entire prayer service out loud, everything, the first word, the last word, the middle words, everything. It's the same tune, and it's a very slow tune. It's not. They don't read like that. It's a.
That's slow, but it is a pace.
It's like, you know, for example, if Sephardim, you pray with us Kabbalat Shabbat, we say Lechu neranena Adonai Naria Letzuri Shenu Nekadama Panav. That's how we pray. The right. So what happens? What happens if you come 10 minutes late or 5 minutes late? You can still catch up because we're going at a pace that is easy to catch up to. You have to press yourself. But what happens when you go to a synagogue where they go, you know, the Chura Hashem, and they stop, count 5 seconds, and then Arba'im Shana Kud Bedor, and then they're done. So there's not even realistically possible to catch up to them. And when the Shulchan Aruch was written, this idea of fast minyanim didn't exist yet. It wasn't it wasn't still a Jewish custom. Yeah.
It wasn't
There
yet.
was no 10 o'clock train to catch.
No, even there was nothing, and therefore many.
Fast minyan, all over Brooklyn. Wherever you go,
How long?
entire Brooklyn,
What?
davening is very fast.
Very fast.
Yeah, everywhere
Not just
you go.
Brooklyn, Israel. Also, I saw minyanim.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Shabbat
there
morning.
was once a rabbi. Maybe it was Rabbi Chanan Spector, Rabbi Chanan Wasserman, one of the two. He once asked the boy he used to pray in his house, a minyan. And he asked one of the boys to be the chazan. So the boy was the chazan. What do I always tell you before you become the chazan?
Speak loud.
And?
Be clear.
No.
Have kavanah.
Say it slowly.
Oh.
Ever tell you to say it slowly?
Yeah, be
Yeah,
clear.
no.
It's the same.
Okay. Be clear, it's not saying this slowly. You can pray slow and nobody understands what you're saying. So, this rabbi, Rosh Shiva, he told the student pray, and the guy, the whole prayer prayed, and afterwards he took him aside and said, listen, there's only one time in Jewish history where we rushed. And it says, the Egyptians chased after the Jewish people, so we ran. He said, but let me tell you something. When you walked in to pray Mincha today, nobody was chasing you. He's like, you don't have to run as fast as they ran when they were running out of Egypt. He's like, today we have time to bake bread, we don't have to eat matzahs. Slow down a little bit, pray a little bit slower. And I'll tell you, if you add 10 minutes or 15 minutes to a conventional minyan, people can pray in a normal. You're not asking for another hour. You're asking for 10 more minutes. 10 minutes of, you know, in Baltimore, Psukei de Zimra took 25 minutes.
Good.
On a weekday.
Shabbos.
7 o'clock was Shacharit. 7:25 they did Baruch Hu.
It's like with the here.
And you know, at the first time in my life I ever said all of Psukei de Zimra. Probably the last time also. You know, where else do you get the chance to read everything that you have to read in Psukei de Zimra? We should aspire to create such minyanim.
Well, now that you're a rabbi, you can create that. Because you
Thank
can
God,
tell
well,
people to do it.
I think that in our synagogue we don't pray so fast. We don't pray so fast.
Much slower.
It frustrates some people. People who want to get in and out, but that's how we pray. We pray pretty slow.
Oh.
Our normal shacharit, with all of the skipping, when we skip quite a lot, takes us an
15
hour.
minutes,
Exactly an hour.
We have a commitment to be done by 8, and we basically make the
We
commitment.
basically make the commitment.
That's good.
But we don't cut, like for example, we don't rush Psukei de Zimra or Shema or Shemona Esrei.
I mean,
Afterwards,
you skip stuff instead of trying to rush everything.
Right.
The whole thing.
but we try. We try. Shabbat, for example, nobody has a 10 o'clock lunch they have to make. You know, this is a.
Not only that we say it slow and
In
everybody
Israel-
can turn to say Psukei Zimra.
Israel, we're eating.
So, you
lunch
know,
at
one person
10:30.
starts one chapter,
best time
paragraph,
of my
another one
life.
goes on, another
Like,
paragraph,
I have
until you hit
hours.
Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu is
Mincha,
Chazan.
1 o'clock.
Even the Chazan,
Like
daven
coming
very
back to
slow.
Mincha, it's
You
unheard
know,
of.
he say everything loud,
At 1
very
o'clock.
clear tone.
Yeah, it's
Remember,
very
Israel will wake up 8
It's
o'clock.
easy to
go
follow. If
shul.
somebody doesn't know Hebrew,
8 o'clock.
it's easy to follow the davening.
Now, I had a boy here with a transliterated siddur this week because he didn't know how to read Hebrew. And in his transliterated siddur, he was able to follow along every word of tefillah. Because we prayed slow, and he was out loud, and he could follow with us. Baruch Hashem. Let's finish, page 21. Guys, halakha 20.
Yesh Abram.
That's Siman Alef.
Long strides.
Yesh omrim, there are those who say, Achar kriyat ma'aseh ha'olah. After you read the Olah offering. What's the English?
Sorry.
Elevation.
The elevation offering, thank you.
A new translation.
They say here, Etzon milfanecha may be your will. Shehiyeh zeh, that this should be chashuv, considered, kubal, and accepted, ki'ilu, as if, hikrafti, I sacrificed an olah, An ola offering.
Translate to burnt offering.
Burnt offering?
Yeah.
Burnt, because the whole korban is
Interesting.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Isn't that true with all the korbanot?
No.
Not
What?
No,
completely.
in terms of saying,
Oh, saying this here at all. That's a great question. I'm going to explain just one more moment. V'chein, and also achar maaseh hatodah, after the todah offering, the Thanksgiving offering, the hashlamim, and the Easter. I mean the Thanksgiving. You have next
Okay.
holiday. What is
So it's a very
hashlamim?
big one. Shalom.
Peace offering, yeah.
Peace offering.
I thought it was complete. I thought it was a complete offering.
Translate shlamim from shalom. So peace
Shalom,
offering.
yeah.
yeah.
It's the one that's like
As
10
opposed,
pounds
as
of
opposed
bread
to
and like
shalem,
23
like
pounds of meat.
complete.
Completely.
Guys, I'm so happy that in the next section we don't have King James coming with us. So,
You have
Shlamim
English.
and Torah, they both complete.
No, shlamim you.
Well, I mean,
I'm not a baki b'korbanot.
Ola is burnt offering. The entire korban is burnt, except the skin goes to the kohanim that offer the burnt. This one, they can sell it, process it, make shoes out of it, and so on. The hide goes to the kohanim. Korban todah, it's and thanks offering, or Thanksgiving offering. The kohen only get the chazeh, the breast, and the shok. And the shok, I mean.
People eat
And the people eat barbecue the rest of
Only
them.
the male.
The same thing with shlamim.
Only the male can eat.
Shlamim, yeah, it's like 20
למה
pounds.
לחי? לא.
What?
לחי, לא מקבלים. משהו.
It's תלוי בקורבן. As a matter of fact, really, if you say all the korbanot, it says exactly
What they get.
how long
remember,
can you
like,
eat them?
Learning
You know,
the
the
like,
nechalim
you had,
yom v'layla,
like, offering
the
Shlamim
nechalim
is
yom
like
v'layom,
a lot of
you know, the whole
stuff.
thing.
You
A lot
had,
of
you had
stuff.
like, that's why you bring
Shlamim
all your
is,
friends with you, like families.
You have to eat it.
You have to eat all of it. Like you can't leave
Kohanim
anything
get
behind.
part, but most
bring
of
all-
the
everyone
meat goes
with
to
you.
the
All your friends, all your family,
and
your friends of your
everybody
friends
back
of
to
your
the
friends.
Right. Let's keep reading. V'nechleku, this is the reason why Jack, this answers your question. V'nechleku ha'acharonim. The acharonim have argued. If Yomar, one should say, Yehi ratzon achar chatat v'asham, after the sin or guilt offering. Uve'eze nosach yomrenu, in which nosach should you say? Like, how should you say it? Accept it as a sin offering because I sinned today, or accept it as a sin offering because if I would have sinned, should I? There are questions. What do you say in this nosach? Ulam, but Minhag Sfaradim, the custom of the Sfaradim, ve'edot HaMizrach, and the countries of the, I don't know how you would even, the Orient they call them, but there's a better word for edot HaMizrach.
I do them Mizrach. It's just
The other
The
Sfaradim.
people who followed
Bizmaneinu, in our days, Shelo lomar, we don't say Yehi ratzon achar kriyat, after the reading of Maseh Korbanot, after the Korbanot. We don't even say the Yehi ratzons. We just read the Korbanot. We don't say the Yehi ratzons. This is a Sephardic custom based on actually many Ashkenazi rabbis. That's our custom, and therefore you open up the Sephardic Siddur, you won't find it. But to recap, Aruch Siman Alef. We began speaking about how to wake up in the morning, imagining God in front of your eyes. We spoke about keeping Torah mitzvot, being strong, don't let people put you down, but not
don't be too hard.
fighting with people. We then later spoke about Tikkun Chatzot. Do you guys remember the midnight prayers? We spoke about crying over the temple. We spent a significant amount of time on Korbanot. And next week, we're going to begin the laws of getting dressed. We're allowed to sing Mazel Tov. We will in 1 second. But you're not allowed to end without starting something new. So with your permission, let's just go to the top of page 22.
Torah always continues.
Siman Bet. This is the second chapter in the Shulchan Aruch. Din, the laws of levishat, wearing begadim, clothing. The laws of wearing clothing. Who knew that there were laws about wearing clothing? Uvo,
Right shoe, left.
and included in this chapter, Vav, are 6 seifim halachot.
not too bad.
The first one, Lo yilbash miyoshev. You should not get dressed sitting down.
The translation I have says you should not put your undershirt on when you're sitting down.
You're going to see exactly in a moment why they write what they write. The problem with most translations, as all translations, you have to translate concepts instead of literal words. Because, you'll see in a moment, what kind of clothing they wore. Ella, rather, Yikach chaluko, you should take your robe, V'yachnis bo, and you should place inside of it, Rosho, your head, V'zrotav, and your arms, Be'odenu shuchev, while you are still laying down,
They were broke.
V'nimtza, so that it'll happen, Kesheyakum, when you stand up, Shehu mechuseh, you'll be fully dressed. Let's explain to you. People didn't wear clothing when they slept, or they wore certain clothing. They wore many more layers of clothing than we wear today. We think we wear a lot of layers, but there was like home clothing, undergarment clothing, outer clothing, coats that you wore when you were in the street or in front of special people, so on and so forth. And the style of clothing was not the normal, pants, belt buckle, those kind of things. Very free, flowing clothing, namely a robe. If you ever see how Arabs dress, this is the way the Jews dressed. This is the way the Chachmei Sfarad dressed. In Europe, it was the same thing until the pants were invented. It's not like the world. That was the most practical form of dress. The Kohen in the Beit HaMikdash, he didn't wear a suit and a hat. He wore a robe.
That's why it says when you go up on the ramp.
Very nice to go up the ramp. So
Don't put stairs, because then it's like...
So when you wear a robe, let's say you're not wearing clothing, and now you sit up in your bed, what have you now done? You've uncovered yourself with a blanket, and what are you doing?
Immodest.
You're unclothed in front of Hashem. What's the first halakha of the Shulchan Aruch?
Hashem's always before you,
Imagine that Hashem is always in front of you. So now you're saying, oh, hey Hashem, I'll tell you when I felt this way. Mechila, I hope I'm not sharing an embarrassing story. I was once in the bathrooms at the Kotel. And I they have Kotel bathrooms. And I opened the door to the bathroom, I was just about to come out. And I find myself face to face with the chief rabbi of Israel. Chacham Bakshi Doron, the former chief rabbi of Israel, the Sephardic chief rabbi with his robe and his turban. Thank God his entourage does not come with him to the bathroom. But I'm like, you can imagine, you see pictures of him, you read about him in the news, you read his books, and then he's right in front of you and you just got out of the bathroom. Very embarrassing. You don't want to wake up, oh hey Hashem, look what I'm not wearing. Right? That's not how a Jew wants to start off his day. And if a Jew is able to start off his day like that, it shows a certain level of chutzpah that they have. Not chutzpah as in a malicious chutzpah, but I don't really care who I'm in front of, because in my house I could do whatever I want. Remember, it's not your house. Hashem lives in your home with you. And therefore, when we get out of bed, we want to be wearing a significant amount of clothing. And the way to do so, in the first halakha in Shulchan Aruch, is because people didn't wear, there they have to write undershirt, because what else are they going to write? Yeah. But a person should wear his robe. Now, a robe is long, and you can't fit into a robe. You fit in the robe, you put it over your head, and it drops over your body. So he says, when you're laying in bed, take your robe from the side of your bed, scrunch it up, put your head in, stick your hands through, and then when you sit up, automatically what will happen?
Gravity pulls.
You will already be dressed. You'll already be dressed, and that way you don't deal with the problem of being undressed in front of Hashem. This is the first halakha of how a person should get dressed in the morning. Because Hashem, we're going to discuss more practical ramifications to us and the clothing that we wear. But for right now, I think we owe every single one of ourselves a yeshikach. Don't pat yourself on the back. That's what they do in the elementary school. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to sing ourselves a mazel tov. Siman tov u'mazal tov u'mazal tov siman tov siman tov u'mazal tov u'mazal tov siman tov u'mazal tov mazal tov siman tov yehelanu 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 u'lechol Yisrael yehelanu u'lechol Yisrael. Mazal tov, siman tov, siman tov, mazal tov, mazal tov, siman tov, siman tov, mazal tov, mazal tov, siman tov, yehelanu.